Welcome to episode 11 starring Krista Rizzo. Two things for you. First of all, Krista helped me name the show, so Krista, thank you for that. And second of all, I wanted to congratulate Krista on her successful TEDx talk that she did a couple weeks ago. When we recorded this episode, she didn't know it was a thing and hadn't done it yet, and she's actually delivered that speech since then. So Krista, thank you for being an inspiration to me and all of us what's actually possible when you set your intentions. Enjoy the episode, everybody. Hey, Krista, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so good to have you on today. I can't wait for the audience to get to know you and hear about the fun conversation we're about to have. First things first, love if you would give the audience a bit of background on yourself.
So, hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. I am Krista Rizzo. I am a jack of all trades, let's just say. I'm currently a certified professional coach, a published author, and a motivational speaker. I came to this profession through a very long and tenured, several decades of experience in the corporate world. I have a background in sales and relationship management and operations and a little bit of finance put in there. And 5 years ago, decided to kind of jump without a parachute and kind of fell into coaching. So I went back to school and got certified, and I had been writing a blog for several years prior to that called Why Am I Yelling? And so that has become the name of my brand, the name of my book series, or well, I have one book currently, but the rest of them will follow. And it has also become pretty much part of my daily mantra, because yelling for me means passion, and it's all about what you're passionate about and if you're following your passion. And it doesn't have to be one specific thing. It can be a whole boatload of them. So that's where I am now.
Cool. Well, we're going to obviously hear a lot more about that throughout our time together today. Yep. As I like to do, I like to let the audience know how we know each other. So I'll start with this one. Okay. I met Krista through a joint colleague that we knew through networking. So we've attended a networking event together. I met Krista in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, right by Grand Central. And that is how we know each other. That was, I think, 2 months ago now. So we haven't known each other for long, but we've gotten to know each other pretty well, spent some time at networking events, communicated over social media, and it's been really fun getting to know Krista. So the next question I'll ask you, Krista, another tradition I have here on the podcast is give an honest answer, and honest is fine. But what was your first impression of me when you met me? And then I will do the same for you, because we haven't talked about this yet. So this is always fun when it's like a new thing, which is really fun and also a little bit scary, but it always turns out to be great no matter what.
Okay. My first impression of you, yes. We met at a networking event, which I was the only girl in the room. Shocking.
I don't remember. Oh yeah, you were, weren't you? Yeah, you were. That's right.
And I think I had a first impression from everybody around the table. My first impression of you was you are a very approachable. You're approachable. Like you are a nice, genuine guy, right? I didn't feel like you were putting on airs. I felt like what you see is what you get. And that to me was comfortable. I felt comfortable.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I think that's a little bit of my Midwestern values, Minnesotan showing up, which is, I love hearing that, but I'm also like, man, maybe I need to be a little more New York, a little more East Coast to like intimidate people a little bit more. But
no,
that's a whole different discussion.
No.
So you, now that I remember, yes, you were the only woman there, and I remember when our mutual friend Jay introduced us. My impression of you is like, wow, that's a person who may have more energy than me. And that's saying a lot, because people like, I'm sure you get the same thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about this today, but yeah, like you're like, I'm an energy person, and you're obviously an energy person as well. And I'm not sure if you have more energy than me or not. I think we pretty much match each other, which I put myself in like the top 5% of all human beings in terms of energy. I think you're probably there with me. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, wow, there's a lot of energy. And then like, you're not a yeller, but you obviously bring a lot of volume to the room in like a powerful way for being a speaker. And I'm just like, oh, that's a woman who's got the confidence. She's a speaker. She's a coach. Like, I need to connect with her because one, I like to meet fellow coaches and
Yeah.
speakers. And two, I'm just like, oh yeah, like energy. Let's do this. Let's get to know each other. So, yeah. So I think so for the introverts who are listening to the podcast today or listening late at night, we're either going to tire you out
You're going to be exhausted.
or you're going to be exhausted after listening to this two extroverted, high energy people talking on the podcast today.
Right. I will say this, that it's funny because I call myself an introverted extrovert because a lot of times when I walk into a room where I don't really know many people or anybody at all, I like to like absorb the energy first and get a feeling for who's who in the room rather than like just walking up to somebody and being like, hey, what's your story kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
So, but yes, my husband actually says to me, like, you need to like sit down for 37. Like, I don't even understand how you just don't, you can't.
Actually, just to share this really quick, one of my friends is talking. They're like, are you more of a morning person or a night person? I'm like, I'm kind of both. And they're like, that's just really annoying.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I just have like a lot of energy at all times when I'm awake. And I know that can be annoying for some people.
And I don't drink caffeine at all. Like, this is it. I wake up in one speed. One of my girlfriends was like, wait a minute, how did I not know that about you? I'm like, could you imagine, like me on caffeine? It's like it's a total different animal.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. I only drink green tea. I used to drink a lot of soda. I gave that up. So when I drink caffeine, it doesn't even, I don't think it does anything for me other than makes me a little more awake, but I don't feel like I'm more jittery or anything.
I get jittery, I get headaches. I get all of it.
Amazing. I love it. Well, let's kick this off. I can't wait for the audience to get to know you. So first question, what is something that Krista nerds out about?
I nerd out about books. I'm an avid reader. I don't really have one particular genre. I read a lot of everything. You should see the stack on my bedside table. I have a 7-year-old, and literally the other night he was like, Mom, I think that stack's going to fall over and hurt somebody. Yeah. But I enjoy reading. I also nerd out about self-care because that's something that I neglected for a really long time on a deeper level. Like manicures and pedicures are one thing, but like really learning how to take care of yourself in a whole way, that's something that's very, very important to me. And I take it seriously. And I definitely spend some time nerding out about learning more ways to connect with myself and be better for everybody else while I'm doing it.
Yeah. I think that's also something that a lot of clients come to you for, right? Is the self-care, like the self-care aspect and how to treat yourself better.
Yep. It's all part of the, relationship conversation. Like I always start client conversations with and they are sidelined by it. And I warn them, I'm like, we're going to talk about you too. And I think it's important. Like I start all of my private coaching off with, we're going to peel back the layers of the onion of Jason, for example. And we're going to talk about how you feel about yourself. And it can get uncomfortable sometimes because we all like to portray a particular image, let's just say. And, sometimes when you're asking vulnerable questions, it's like, wait, I don't do that. I don't take good enough care of myself. And now I'm seeing it, right? Because it's easy to do. It's easy to put yourself second or 52nd, right? Like everything else is more important. So learning that it's a journey.
Yeah. Any secret self-care you're willing to share with the audience that something that you like to do that might be a little off the beaten path or something that people might want to take on that you found to be useful for you?
Well,
or recommend to your clients.
Yeah, totally. I think mindset is the most important gift that you can give to yourself, of being able to, really be tapped into how you can literally change your day just by your thoughts. And so I meditate every morning. And it was funny because I was out to dinner with some new friends the other night, and one of the guys at the table was like, I can't figure out how to meditate the right way. And I was like, there isn't a right way. I said, you think of it as sitting cross-legged on a yoga mat with your candles and your Buddha and your own music playing in the background. But for most of us, that's not how we get our energy. And for a lot of us, we can't follow that because we can't figure it out. Like, that's for a very seasoned person. I love a guided meditation. I will literally, in the morning, I get up and I do it in bed. Like, I'll grab my phone, I'll throw my headphones on. My husband is snoring next to me, and I will put on a guided meditation for 15 minutes in the morning. And that literally is, how do I want to feel today? Do I want to listen to Abraham Hicks tell me how I can, attract more abundance today? Or do I want to listen to Gabby Bernstein tell me how to, get into alignment? Do I want to listen to Deepak Chopra? Like, I have a whole vast list of people that I listen to. And I think that if you have a routine and you can start a routine like that's easy to start, and you can do this tomorrow and you stick with it, you really will see an improved result in how you're thinking about yourself, how you're thinking about your day, how you are having a crappy afternoon and you've got a really bad thought in your brain. And all of a sudden you're like, I'm not supposed to be thinking this. How am I turning this around? And you do. That's my, I think if you can find a mindset practice and you can incorporate it like right now, you should do it.
Yeah. So meditation. So I never meditated until a year ago. Actually, when I hired a coach, she's like, hey, you should try meditation. I'm like, okay. And 5 minutes for me was torture. Going back to the energy thing, my brain moves extremely fast as well. And now I am proud / embarrassed to announce that I had a streak of 47 days straight of 15 minutes. Yeah. And I broke that streak last Saturday, not this last Saturday, but the Saturday before, because I was traveling. I know it's just an excuse. But now for me, like 15 to 20 minutes in the morning is so addicting. And I literally just sit there completely still.
That's it.
And it's just, for me, it's taught me patience and taught me how to control my energy a little bit more, because, when I first did it, I'm like the foot tapper, 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, is this going to end? And now it's like, oh, I can't wait. My challenge now is getting up before my daughter.
Yes.
To do it.
Yeah.
We live in an apartment. So.
Yeah. No, I do it at 6:30 and I don't wake anybody up until 7. So it's good.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like your husband is fast asleep.
He's still like,
with his snoring,
he has no idea what's happening.
That's perfect. Well, thanks for sharing all that. One thing I'd like to offer is when the show comes out, if you want to put any resources into the show notes about any meditations that you recommend, I'm sure the audience would love to explore that further. Next question.
Okay.
What's something that's inside of your comfort zone that might be outside of somebody else's comfort zone? And I think there's quite a few things here. We've actually talked a little bit about this, but why don't you share with the audience something that pops to mind for you?
I think public speaking is very inside of my comfort zone. And I think there are a lot of people out there who are not comfortable doing that, not comfortable getting up in front of groups, not comfortable expressing themselves and sharing their stories. And they're, intimidated by other people's judgment. I think that has been something that, it's funny. I was thinking back the other day about how long I've technically been speaking in front of people. And I can remember being in first and second grade in the Catholic school that I was going to up in Westchester. And I was always the kid who was chosen to do, the readings at the big masses, not just the ones that were happening, on Friday afternoons that we all went to church for, but like when we would go to Marymount College, I was the one out of the first or second grade that got to like do the reading because I apparently was yelling then. And so, and, all through high school and college, like I was president of student government and all that stuff. So public speaking for me has been something that I've put on the back burner for a long time after I went into corporate. Like I didn't really have a public speaking role in my jobs. I mean, I had teams and things like that, but it wasn't like I was, standing in front of hundreds of people. Mm-hmm. But I love it. And I get a lot of energy from it. And I've also learned later in life that I don't really care what anybody thinks when it comes to like the judgment piece. It's like, I'm up here, I'm sharing my story. And if you want to come up here, you can stand next to me and do it with me too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the whole judgment thing is, it's part of life, but I also think that, you know, people are very quick to judge others when they haven't experienced that for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know a lot of speakers as well. And one of the things that a lot of them tell me is it's taken them years and hundreds, if not thousands of hours to get comfortable. It doesn't sound like your story. What I heard there is you've been the person, this is like always been inside of you. You've naturally been, and it's been something you've always been comfortable with. And then have you had to work at it and practice at your craft? Or do you just kind of get up there and like, you're just naturally somebody who can go and deliver and you don't have to work so much at it?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think that, you know, if I know the subject that I'm speaking on, then I can probably wing just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
But if I need to be more prepared, I think it depends on the audience, right? I don't typically find myself in situations where I'm not comfortable with the content that I have to deliver. And I'm not really uncomfortable in specific audiences either, right? Like I come from a corporate background. I can stand in front of a room full of suits. No offense, people in suits. But I can also stand in front of a bunch of moms. And I did that for a long time too. Like when I got into coaching, I had a partnership with Babies R Us because I was parent coaching in the beginning. I was like, I'm going to be a parenting coach because that sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a partnership with Babies R Us, and I would go to their stores and I would do free seminars for new and expectant parents in New York and Long Island and in Queens. And I had a bunch of different stores that I would go into, and I would just stand in the back where the recliners were, and the pregnant moms would sit in the recliners and the dads would be with them. And we would, you know, have really engaging, honest conversations about, you know, what being a new parent actually is. So I've done it in a bunch of different scenarios, right? On a stage in a room full of hundreds of people, or, you know, sitting around a table at a board meeting. So it's, you know, for me, I think you can't look at public speaking or speaking in general as like it's not, you're not always on a stage in front of an arena full of people, right? You could be in a church doing a reading. You could be sitting in a boardroom at a table. You can be at Babies R Us with 10 parents in front of you, right? And I think if you kind of look at it that way, you get a little bit more comfortable with it because it's like, oh, this is just what I do. I do this every day, right?
Yeah. You could also be on a podcast with hundreds or thousands of listeners.
Yeah, like yes, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's just I think we have compartmentalized job descriptions to a degree that it kind of makes us feel like, oh, I could never do that, when in real life you're like, you already are. Like you're already doing it. So don't discount yourself if it's something that you want to do, don't discount yourself because you have a story and you have an experience and you have, you know, a message. And I think the world needs to hear everybody's message, regardless of where you're, you know, relaying that message.
Yeah. And I'm loving that you're saying that because that is at the core, that is what this podcast is about, is everybody has an interesting story and a message. And I want to interview as many people as want to share that out. So that is, we are completely aligned on that.
Oh, good. Yay.
Now we're going to flip the script a bit.
Okay.
And talk about something that's outside of your comfort zone. That might be inside of somebody else's.
Doing extreme things. I'm not a roller coaster rider, which might sound, you know, contrary to my energy and I'm not afraid of anything, kind of like I don't really have a lot of fear about things. But I definitely have comfort zones, right? I like to go to an amusement park, but I do not like to ride the twisty upside down, make you want to throw up roller coasters. No thanks. That's just not for me. I don't really like, I think that kind of stuff. Like, we have a house up in Western Connecticut in the mountains, and we bought it 6 years ago, and I was, 40 years old when we bought the house, and it's right around the corner from a very small ski mountain. And my oldest was 7 at the time. And one of our neighbors was like, you're going to go, you're like, he's going to learn how to ski. And I was like, he's totally going to learn how to ski. And she was like, well, you're going to go ski with him. And I was like, I don't know how to ski. Well, you're going to learn how to ski too. And I was like, I am 40 years old. I don't think you can learn how to ski I guess you could. And so I took a few ski lessons and mastered the bunny slope like it was nobody's business.
Oh man.
But when I got up to and one of my girlfriends is a really good skier. She was like, come on, I'm going to take you up and we're going to go really slow. And it's going to be, I got off that lift and I looked down and couldn't see the bottom. And I was like, someone's going to have to come pick me up. I'm not doing this. I was like, if I go down that hill, I'm going to break it. I'm going to break a limb and I'm going to be of no use to anybody. So I'm not willing to put my life on the line to do this. And it took me like an hour to get down that hill. And I was nervous and scared. And I was like, it's just not anything extreme is not really for me.
Did you manage to stay up the whole time going down for an hour, or did you wipe out?
I fell like twice, but not like major wipeout. So it wasn't so terrible, but it wasn't something that was like, oh, I did it, I need to go do it again. I'm not that person. There are things that I would be willing to do again, right? It's like, I didn't do so great on that one, and it was kind of fun. This for me was not, there was no fun involved. It was all terrifying.
Got it. So massive stage, tens of thousands of people, arena, you're speaking, loving it.
Yeah. I won't go down a ski slope.
Won't go down a ski slope. Totally understand.
Very contrary, but whatever.
Yeah. Good transition into the next question I have for you. You've got 5 minutes and you've got a global stage, meaning that you get to broadcast via television, live to the world. You get to give a speech for 5 minutes. What would you give your speech on and why?
I have a list, but I think I would, I talk about relationships and how important they are in our lives. And I think in 5 minutes, it would be really easy to explain to anybody why they are important and how they are connected. And being able to see that instead of individualizing all of our relationships, and being able to, find a foundation where a foundation for the essentials is what I call them of relationships exist, and being able to apply that in all of our relationships. It makes navigating your relationships easier and more manageable. And it's not like, this is my relationship with my wife, and this is my relationship with my kid, and this is my relationship with my friend. They're all separate, yes, but they are all held together by the same foundation.
That is a very important topic, and I don't know that I've ever heard it phrased quite that way. So I'm excited when you do your first TED Talk, or when you get to give your global speech at some point. I will definitely be tuning in, or I'll be there live to support you on that.
I
think
love
it's a super cool topic. So far you've told us snippets of your background. So we heard Catholic school in Westchester. You mentioned that you're a parent. You mentioned you spent a lot of years in corporate, and now you're a full-time coach and speaker. This is an opportunity for you to just give us your journey, anything that you think the audience would find interesting about how you ended up talking to me today on this podcast.
How I ended up talking to you today on this podcast, just about,
your journey to this moment in time. Yeah.
Well, we have kept in touch, and I think we enjoy each other's company. So being on your podcast was kind of a no-brainer. I love what you're doing. I think that this is a great platform and something that, a lot of people will benefit from. My journey to getting here is a little twisty-turny. I did have a long career in corporate, and
Did you wear a suit?
I wore a suit sometimes.
You were a suit. You were a suit. I love it.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, there's and it's funny because I've been doing more speaking in corporations lately, and I'm I dusted off an old blazer the other day, and I was like, haven't seen you in a while. Let's see if you still fit. So that's been kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, I had a really long, successful career in corporate with almost the same company for the whole time, with the same company for almost the whole time. That makes more sense. Uh, and had a, had a great run up until the last 18 months there. And it got toxic and uncomfortable. And there was, some harassment involved, not just with me, but with other people that was, visible and blatant. And that wasn't where I wanted to be anymore. It was taking a toll on me personally. It was taking a toll on my health. I didn't realize that it was taking a toll on my home life because I was trying to keep it very separate because, that's just how my brain works. Um, and so I left there willingly, figured out how to, take a severance package through a reorganization and took a little time for myself and really was um, fortunate that I could do that. And I spent some time just really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I still had no idea. So I, reached out to a service that does, corporate placement and they do all kinds of stuff. And so I worked with a
Mhm.
career coach and updated my LinkedIn and started getting inquiries from a lot of major companies that most people would want to give their left arm for. And
Mhm.
nothing was exciting to me. I didn't want any of it. And so one day, the coach that I was working with said to me, she was like, I have never said this to anybody before in my life. And I'm going to say it now because I think that this is what your path is. She said, but I think that you need to explore being a professional coach yourself.
Mm.
And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, I think that you've taken all these assessments, you're doing all this work on what you really want, and you're trying to find your path, and you keep leaning toward what you know. And what you know is working 9 to 5, working a corporate, working at this, working at that. And you can be a coach. You can, like, I'm a coach and I work 9 to 5 and I'm in a corporate setting or whatever. She said, but I think that you might need to take a break and you might need to figure it out for yourself. So I thought about it and she recommended a bunch of different schools to look into. And I found one that kind of felt right for me. And I got more excited as the idea was brewing in my head. And I said to my husband, I was like, I think I need to explore this. And he was like, well, now's the time. I mean, you're not working and, it's not a long commitment. It was like a 9 month program or whatever. And it was all
Mhm.
online and stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And so I started doing it and I fell in love with it. And I was getting job offers and I was not taking any of them. And I decided that I was going to, dust off the old Why Am I Yelling blog and start writing again because that's something I love to do. And I just kind of turned into a business. And it has been a roller coaster. And I don't really know how, and I don't like roller coasters clearly. So
Yes.
it has been uh, a crazy wild ride, like from start to finish. And it's
Mhm.
far from being over, right? So I'm 4 years into having this business, quote unquote. There's been a lot of setback and there's been a lot of celebration and there's been a lot of accomplishment and then there's also been a lot of self-doubt and it's not easy, being an entrepreneur, as you know.
Mhm.
And when you're doing it pretty much by yourself, right? Like sometimes we'll outsource, a web person, or I'll outsource social media help, or that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's me in my apartment and in the office in my apartment, and or I'm going to a coffee shop so I can have, you know, be surrounded by other humans and I can see somebody else breathe other than myself. But I wouldn't trade it. And I think that, hard work pays off and you have to be, and like you said, patience. I have learned patience. This, in the last 4 years, if it's taught me nothing, it's taught me patience.
What did you what did you have to learn patience on? Like what specifically?
I think learn success, quite honestly, like visibility and getting clients and attracting the right clients and knowing how to hurry up and wait kind of thing, right? It's like, you know, I talk about relationships all the time and building relationships. And some of my friendships are almost 40 years old, right? So I know how to have a relationship and be in one and nurture it and whatever. But when you are, you're trying to build a business and you're trying to have relationships with new clients and get visible, and there's a lot that goes into creating a brand, quite honestly. I didn't open a brick and mortar. I don't have a product to sell other than my book and my online coaching and myself in real life. Like, I'm selling myself. You're buying me as your accountability partner. So I think having patience and putting the time in and the effort in and being okay with, not getting a monetary result, right? It was like, oh, I'd have get a client here and a client there, but like not having consistency in your income. That was hard for me because it was like I was used to getting paid every 2 weeks and I was making a lot of money, and it was like, wait, what happened, right? So you really do have to be patient. And one of my dad's good friends, when I started this, pulled me aside. He was a successful entrepreneur, and he said to me, "You have to promise me that you're going to give it a few years. Like, if this is something you really want to do and it lights you up and you love it and you know that you can turn this into something that you can be proud of and that can sustain you and your family and whatever you need, then you have to promise me that you're going to be patient and you are going to be okay with, like, you're going to think of it as failure, but it's not. Like, you're getting a new notch on the belt every day or every month or every year." He's like, "But you're not going to be making $250,000 your first year. You're probably not going to make that for 5 years. But you'll be like, you have to be patient and don't throw in the towel. Figure it out." And I was like, okay. And so that to me has been the figuring it out, and the patience part has been the most challenging for me.
Yeah. So when you finished your coaching program, did you take on clients right away? Were you looking for clients as soon as you started that program?
Yeah, I was looking for clients during the program. So that was part of the program, was like, they were like, okay, well, go out and see if you can like get some clients. And this is how you do it, right? There's a marketing and there was a whole like business building component to it. And I did. So I sent an email out to the people that I knew, and I was like, here's my website. I did like a website, and I had a friend who did it for me and like that kind of stuff. And I started to build an email list. Um, I tried to get visible online, which I think for a lot of people creates a lot of success. But I think there are a lot of people online that are not really. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors with online coaching, and you kind of fall into that trap. I like to believe the good in people. That's my thing, right? I'm honest. What you see is what you get. I'm not going to say something one day and then say the complete opposite the next day, usually. But there are a lot of people out there who are, and they're taking a lot of money from people, and they're not delivering what they are saying, right? And you see them put up these glossy, beautiful websites, and they get these people, and they spend $10,000 on their coaching program, and then 6 months later, their website is down, and you don't know where they went. They've disappeared.
Yeah.
And I've had that experience myself, not with me, but like myself. Like, I've worked with coaches, I've invested in coaches, and I've been like, I could have done a much better job at this than spending all this money, right? So, I think that it's an important lesson to learn. I think, being aware of what's out there and that kind of stuff. So I think for me, I want to be less online. Like, I want my presence to be online, and I want to be visible, and I want people to follow me, and I want them to do all that stuff, because how else are they going to find you, right? Self-promotion. But I am much better in person and going to networking events and meeting people and that kind of stuff. Like, that is really where I enjoy being.
Yeah. And I think I view myself the same way. And I think that's the whole, and I think we've talked a bit about this, but there's this whole sub industry that's popped up around helping coaches, consultants, speakers, and service-based solopreneur businesses get more clients. And it's like, I don't know about you, but I looked at I've got 8 offers in my LinkedIn messaging right now.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
I can help you get more clients. Right. I'm going to pay you $10,000 for you to get me a client? No.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've got, and I'm curious because I haven't taken anybody up on the offer. I've, being a former salesperson, I kind of have a little bit of fun with it.
Totally.
Because I think one of the things that those companies are good at doing is finding the new coaches that are coming out of programs that do have a heart for coaching, that are good coaches, but they're just not business savvy. Like you and I come from the business world. We understand marketing and sales. And they end up, like you said, people end up spending like $10,000 on these programs. And it's not that really rocket science. And I actually feel bad for a lot of those people. There's good systems out there. I haven't invested in anything yet. And I likely won't be, because I think the power in this business is it's such a people business, is going and meeting people at networking events or meeting people at parties, just telling people what you do is really it. At least for me, that's it. So
no, I agree. I think, I've invested in, in the beginning, I mean, there's a crazy story that I could tell you with, I partnered with somebody a couple of years ago, and that just went completely off the rails, but it wasn't about coaching. It was, we were doing a project together. But, I've invested in learning how to build marketing tools, right? So I've invested in working with people who have helped me, learn how to do marketing funnels, because I'm terrible at that and I don't like to do them. So it's like, I'm going to hire you to build me a funnel, and that's what I'm going to hire you to do. But I look at that as my time is valuable. I don't want to do it. I will procrastinate until the day is long, because that's not something that I enjoy. I would rather be out meeting people, going to events and doing whatever. So I'm going to pay the funnel guy, whatever. And here's my email list, and I'll write the content for all the emails. You just make sure that they go out and schedule them and do all the back office work. Like that to me is like, that's a business tool.
Yeah.
And that's much different than having somebody teach me how to be a coach. I already know how to do that.
Right. Yeah. Well, one of the things that almost all of them pitch is removing the blocks or the, mental blocks. You're like, but you just, well, and I think this is the other challenge that I'm seeing. And I didn't really know anything about this, but I love talking to fellow coaches about this, is you've gone through a professional program. You have spent a lot of time and a good amount of money, and you've got the hours out in the field with your clients to be a coach. The challenge is, for those of us, and I'm in the same boat. I'm about to wrap up my program. I've got quite a few hours now. The problem is that anybody can say they're a coach. Yeah. So you can stand up and say, hey, today I want to be a coach. Sounds like a cool business. I like helping people. And then you're like, what's next? And the actual product that you offer, the skills, the experience, the background might not always be there. And then I think, to your point, what you were saying, my impression is, and I don't have any hard data on this, is that a lot of the people who go and then hire these companies to go get them clients are those types of people, because they don't actually know how to coach people. So the experience when they do get a client isn't that great for the client.
Yep. I agree.
It comes down to the flash and all that. But that's we could. Yeah.
I mean, we can talk for hours on this, but I think that I was talking to somebody this morning, and we were talking about, no offense to any millennials who are listening, because, you're becoming my ideal client and I didn't even know it. I just signed 2 new clients who are in their mid-20s, and they're like, I need help. And you had a career, and and you transitioned from your career into a new career. And I can't ask a 20-something coach to help me do that, because they haven't actually done it, other than, change jobs once a year, to get more money for their, whatever. So I find that to be really interesting. Like I love it. And the people that I'm meeting and are working with are amazing and fantastic and wonderful. And, I didn't realize that was a niche, really.
Yeah.
But apparently it is. Like, the millennials need somebody with experience to talk them or help them through navigating a life change, a career change, a relationship move. It's almost like a parent kind of thing, but I'm not as old as their parent, right? So I'm like in the middle, right? I mean, like, if I have a 25-year-old client, I mean, I could be old enough to be their parent, but I would have been super young to have them as a child.
Yeah.
But right, so their parents are probably 10 years older than me, and they don't want advice from their parents, but they want to hear it from somebody who is like, okay, I had this long career here, and I had this really great relationship, and I've been married for 18 or however many thousands of years, and I'm figuring out how to make it work, and it can work.
Yeah.
And so, right, so that's been kind of fun for me because it was another unexpected twist in this journey.
Yeah. I've had the exact same experience, and I didn't expect it at all, but I'm finding there's something to be said for attracting the kind of clients who are like, oh, you've been married for a long time, you've got a child or children, you've got like you said, you've got a place in the mountains, and you also live in Greenpoint. Like
Right.
it's like, hey, like this is somebody who's made this work and is also an amazing coach who's figured out how to fit what she wants to do into her life and have it all. Good parent, good wife. Sure, you've got a ton of friends and family around. Like just I found the exact same thing for myself, and I really didn't think about it until it just started happening. And
Yep.
it's really fun to see. And the other thing that I'm realizing, millennials are open to coaching because they know that you can't do it alone.
Yes, they're very open to it. I
Yeah,
think it's amazing, and
yeah,
I can't say enough about it. I think that they're smart. They like to take care of themselves. They know their value and their worth, and they want to invest in themselves. They don't want to make the mistakes that we all made. You know, not ignoring all the things about taking care of ourselves and taking care of the things and doing all the things that we should have been doing for all those years. When we finally open our eyes one day and we're like, wait a minute, something is not right, and I need to fix this.
yeah,
Um, they know, and they're like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right, and I'm going to be vocal about it, and we're going to fix this. So
yeah,
yes.
yeah. I mean, even thinking back to my own background, coming up through corporate and working, I never thought about a coach. I guess my coach is supposed to be my manager,
Yep.
and I've been fortunate to work with a few good managers, but
Right.
I'm thinking of a few in particular. They were certainly not coaching me on anything. Now that
Yes.
my understanding of coaching, there was no coaching happening. They were doing a lot of telling and a lot of demanding, not a lot of coaching or helping me to be a better person. It's more like all about the result.
Yep.
So fascinating. Well, we could talk about coaching.
And forever. So
That we could do a whole nother
right.
podcast on that.
What's the
But
next question?
Yeah, next question. What's the thing that you're most proud of in your life?
Oh. Uh I mean, aside from the obvious kids and stuff, right? I mean,
Oh, just that small thing, just kids and stuff.
well,
No big deal.
yeah, I got two of those.
Our little
Um,
humans, no big deal.
yeah, surviving that. I think for me, it is, you know, I mean, I'm really proud of the relationships that I've built with my family and my husband and my kids and that kind of stuff. But I think I'm proud of myself for persevering through this whole entrepreneurial journey. I think I'm proud of the fact that I didn't give up. I'm proud of the fact that I have figured out how to, make it work and keep going. Like that is one of the biggest things I say to my clients when you just feel like, oh my God, I cannot do this for another day. And you're gonna have those days, you're gonna have those weeks and those
Hmm.
months. Just keep going. Like sit down and make a list of all the things that you've accomplished this far and get so granular that you're like, I sent an email to like two people that I admire who I probably will never get a response, but I actually had the chutzpah to send it, right? A lot of people
Yeah.
don't have the chutzpah to send it. Send the
Yep.
freaking email, right? Get that granular because all of a sudden your list gets really long of the things that you have to be proud of. And I think a lot of us, we like to be proud of the big things when it's really the smaller steps that get you to where you need to go. That's what's getting you to the big thing. So I think for me, this whole entrepreneurial journey and being able to have um, the ability to do it, and it has been scary, and it has been joyous, and it's been every emotion that you could possibly imagine. And I
Hmm.
would not trade a millisecond of it.
So you've been on a virtual roller coaster for over 4 years
4 years,
now.
yeah,
Virtual roller coaster, not a real
yeah,
roller coaster.
not a real one.
Not interested.
Yeah, no.
Question for you about relationships, and you mentioned something earlier on. I want to go down on this a little bit because you are known. People that know you know that you are a relationship person.
Yep.
What do you attribute your strong relationship with your husband and your kids and your friends and your family to? Because I think that's something that actually, and you're a relationship coach. I think that that's something that really is a miss for a lot of people out there.
Well, so when I was writing the book, so the first book in the Why Am I Yelling series is a relationship book, and it's about the foundations that I was talking about before, the foundations of relationships. And when I started writing this book, it was really all about stories. So my son was the actual inspiration for me starting to write the book. I had always had an idea of having a book series in my head, a Why Am I Yelling book series. There was going to be relationships and parenting and marriage and, like the Idiot's Guides, only a little bit more or refreshed, right? And they're not guides. Like I'm not literal, like the book doesn't say to you, do these 5 things. It really is, it's stories of my life and my experiences and experiences of people that I know without naming names. And how we've figured out how to navigate relationships. And I talk about fear of them. I talk about failures of them. I talk about the death of relationships, because you will definitely have those in your life that you'll never be able to get back. But I think that for me, being able to connect similarities in relationships has been helpful for me as I navigate through my own. So knowing that, so I call them the 5 essentials. And when I was writing the book, I was writing all these stories. And then I had an editor who I gave the book to, and she said, these are great stories. What are we teaching the audience? Like, what do you want them to get out of this book? I can read these stories and I can laugh because I can remember being adolescent and going through this story that you're talking about, or, whatever your son is going through right now. But what are we like? I want them to walk away with you're a coach with learning something. And I was like, but I didn't want it to be so coachy and so preachy. And she was like, it doesn't have to be. We can, weave this into your stories and make it just as good or better. And I was like, okay, I want everybody to know that relationships are connected. And she's like, well, how are they connected? And so I started replying to her, and she said, okay, what do you think the audience is going to say about your answer? And I said, I'm not sure. And then we had the idea of, let's poll the audience. So I sent an email to my email list. I did Facebook polls. I did Instagram polls. And I asked one question: give me 3 to 5 things that are non-negotiable in every relationship that you need. And I got a few hundred answers that I put into an Excel spreadsheet, and I, manipulated the data. And the audience basically chose the 5 essentials for me. Amazing. And they are communication, respect, boundaries, support, and intimacy. And if you think about that on a level where you're like, you do need to have all of those things in your relationships. And some people will come back and say, well, what about love? And it's like, yeah, you do need love in your relationships. But before you fall in love with somebody, you have to be able to communicate with them. You have to be able to put up boundaries. You have to be able to feel supported by them. You have to be, intimate with them, not on the let's have sex level, but, you want to hug your children. You want to be able to hold hands with your best friend. You want to be able to, give somebody a kiss on a cheek, look into their eyes and have a conversation with them. That's all intimacy. We don't think about that because we've been, taught to think intimacy equals sex, but it doesn't. So for me, I think utilizing those 5 things in all of my relationships, whether it is business, personal, with myself, because those are also very important, that has been able to allow me to, sustain really long-lasting relationships.
I love it. I love all those. And I was thinking, when you were telling me about the 5, I was like, what else would be my answers? And I think they would be. Yeah.
Right. I mean, like someone was like, what about trust? And I'm like, yeah, trust counts. But do you walk into a relationship trusting somebody on day one?
That's
probably
right.
Not.
That's right.
You probably don't.
Man,
but you walk into a relationship talking to somebody, or right, like, or setting a boundary around what that relationship is going to look like. You walk into a job. You don't walk into a job and be like, I love this job, or I trust this job, or I You know what I mean? Or I forgive. Like forgiveness is a big one too. But you don't start a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with forgiveness.
Yeah. I'm just thinking how powerful it would be to use this as a lens for people that are in the dating scene and people that are serious about like meeting the one or
I, you
serious
know,
about dating.
I
Yeah.
think it's
I'm
a, I
sure
think it's a, and listen, I haven't been on a date in a really long time. Like a
with
first
anybody
date
besides your husband.
yes, yes. But like a first date, like but I've been with my husband for almost 23 years. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I talk to the millennials all the time and they're like, oh, yes, yes, right. You guys are swiping right and swiping left. I don't even know which way you swipe, but it's very, it's very, we didn't have the internet when I was dating. We didn't even have cell phones. Like none of this was a thing. So we had to do it the old fashioned way. I met my husband at a bar. I saw him face to face. I didn't meet him on an app. So yeah, I think, this kind of stuff probably is relative and relevant to them and
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. That's great. I have another question for you. And I usually phrase it a certain way. I'm going to give you the question as I phrase it, but then I'm going to rephrase it specifically for you. So you get an individualized experience today. So the
Okay.
question is, what are you passionate about? But my question for you is actually, what are you yelling about?
Mm. Well, you know that yelling equals passion. So yes. I am yelling about a lot of things. So it kind of depends on the day, quite honestly. And I apologize. There's a very loud truck by. Mostly, I am yelling about doing good in the world and being an example of what you want to be out there, right? Like I have three things that I say to my kids every day before they walk out the door, and that is be happy, make good choices, and I love you. It doesn't really have to go much deeper than that. And I say that to myself too. It's like, I want you to be happy today. I want you to make a good choice. And of course I love you because you are you and you're me. And if you don't love yourself and you haven't figured out that mindset work, then we need to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I think that that is really important. And I think if you just live by very easy, simple rules, then you're passionate about life. I'm yelling about life. I'm yelling about making an impact and doing good things and raising good children and giving back as much as I can and really just leaving a legacy that I can be proud of and everybody else behind me can be too.
Amazing. What's your general philosophy on life?
Live it. Don't sit back and watch it go by. I mean, uh, there's a quote that I use. My dad passed away a couple of years ago, and I spoke at his funeral. And I'm standing in front of this church where there's a few hundred people. He was a popular guy, and I had to come up with, my mother was like, "Well, that's my brother and I," and she was like, "One of you are going to have to say something." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "One of you have to get up. Like you have to." She's like, I can't get up." And my brother was like, "I'm not getting up." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm getting up." Uh, so I had to sit on it for a couple because it's like, how do you write a eulogy for your parent? It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I saw a quote, and it goes something like, "Don't have the same year 75 times and call it a life."
Wow.
And it really it hit me. I was like, that is like so many people go through life just doing what they think they're supposed to do or just surviving, right? They are living hand to mouth or they don't believe that there is something bigger or better for them. Like they've been born into this is their lot in life and this is just how it has to be. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that for 1 second. Um I think life is made to be lived, and whatever your choices are your choices. But experiencing it and savoring it and doing things that scare you and doing things that excite you and moving away and exploring and traveling and eating food that you never thought you'd put in your mouth, like that stuff for me is like, yeah, my time on this earth is not very long. And if you think about it that way, it's kind of like depressing. But at the same time, it's like, just live your life and be happy, right? There's somebody, like, I tell my kids, again, like, my son is in high school, and it's like everyone wants to know where he's going to college, and it's like, he just started high school, he's a freshman, leave him alone. Like, I just want to be
Yeah.
happy, like, just be happy. Your grades, yes, they matter, but I'm not expecting you to be a straight A student or a straight this, or you don't have to play on every sports team, and you don't, just be happy, because guess what, when you get out of school, you have to be an adult, and there's a lot of unhappy people out there who are being adults. True.
That is an understatement. That is an understatement.
Yeah.
Question for you about your philosophy.
Okay.
Has this always been your philosophy, or is this something that's new for you since you've left kind of made this pivot into running your own business and going through a coaching program and really doing work that I'm hearing, you haven't said this, but, experiencing you in person and then hearing about this today, like, you're somebody that comes across, and I hope you all get a chance to meet Krista at some point, or at least see her like on video and such. You feel very aligned to what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
So it's probably easy for you to talk about this philosophy because it's like, it's you. Is this something that you've always had? Because you live it. Is this something you've always had, or is this a new philosophy for you?
I think it is an evolution. So yes, I've always been a little. I can remember, being a little girl and playing with my girlfriends and the Barbies and like the whatevers, and we would, you play house or dress up or all the things. I never wanted to be the mom who stayed at home, because
Mm-hmm.
when we were growing up, it was like, well, our mom's pretty much, my mom worked, but it was like, just about, it was like, you wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and like, you whatever. I always wanted to be the one who was like living in the city and going out and like running a company, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I have always been, have always loved to travel. Like, I remember the first time I was, I think 13, the first time I ever took an airplane ride, and it was from Florida to California. And that first airplane ride, I was like, I want to do this all the time. Like, I want to know what the rest of this world looks like. Like, I want to know. What I didn't know was how to make that available to me as a youngster.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, my parents were very middle class, and we didn't travel a lot on airplanes, and we didn't, like, we took vacations, but we didn't take extravagant trips or do any of that stuff. And so it wasn't talked about when you're definitely going to college, right? And so I went to college, and that was fine, but it was like, going to college and getting a job. It wasn't, you're going to college and then you should go travel the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that the mindset of the generational mindset change, right? Like, we have changed exponentially from our parents. I'm parenting very differently from when my parents parented me. The core values are there, but the way I live in New York City. We grew up in the suburbs. My kid at 10 years old had a Metro card and was like traveling around on trains by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we treat each other, and the way we treat our relationships, and the way that we treat ourselves, it's an evolution, and our kids are going to do it differently than we're doing it with them, right?
Yeah.
But I think that, I've always really been a big believer in loving the life that you're producing for yourself. And even if you
Mm-hmm.
get kind of caught up, like, there was a 20-year stint where I, worked in corporate, and that was a long time, but that allowed me to buy our home, outside of the city,
Mm-hmm.
that we had on a bucket list for a really long time when we both wanted
Mm-hmm.
something. And that allowed us to, travel, because I was at the time, making more money than whatever. Um, so I don't regret doing that. I mean, I might regret doing it for as long as I did, but I don't think I regret that, because I think everything is done in its own time. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, I'm definitely a believer that you should live life and not let it pass you by because you don't have the resource for it. Like, find the resource. You can always find it. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
is figure outable, says Marie Forleo. And I believe it.
Yeah. It's great. So wrapping up, wanted to give you an opportunity to see if there's anything else that you want to share with the audience. You've obviously given us a ton today. If there's anything else that you'd like to share with the audience in terms of what they should know about you, where they can find you, any other philosophies on life, all the stuff.
So I think that, if there's anybody listening out there, wherever you are, and you're going through something, if you are, a woman who is in your midlife and you are experiencing, feelings of unworthiness or unappreciation or, invisibility, I see you. Or if you are somebody who is just trying to figure it all out, you're a millennial and you're like, I don't know what the F I want to do with my life, I see you. And if you are, struggling in a relationship, or you're having a hard time parenting, or you're whatever it is, because the struggle is real and life is not easy. Like, I'm not trying to portray this as you can go out and it's hard. The decision to wake up every day and be successful and be productive and be positive and optimistic, it's a hard thing to do. It's much easier to lay in bed with your covers over your head and like in a warm, comfortable spot, right? Choosing to get up every day and go do something, make sure you're doing something for yourself every single day. Whether it is reading a book, meditating in the morning, taking a bath at night, going for a walk, going to the gym, find doesn't have to be long. Find 5 minutes, find 10 minutes, find an hour. But just make sure you're taking care of you, because if you are not taken care of, nobody else is. And I think that's the most important message for anybody to get through life, right? You have to take care of yourself. And it sounds to a lot of people selfish, but it's really not. And you can find me everywhere. So, just Google why am I yelling? And it pops up. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. I don't really tweet. I don't love it. I'm on my website. I can be found anywhere. And if you want me to come talk to your people, I'm happy to do that too.
Yeah. Awesome. Just want to give you a shout out. You produce really good video content, which is not something a lot of people do, especially on LinkedIn, Instagram. Really cool to see the fun ways to use those platforms to get your unique personality and brand across.
Oh, thanks. I just talked to a camera.
Just talk to a camera,
talk to a camera.
So breakthrough for some people, a lot of people, there's lots of people in the industry who sell video confidence training, because what feels easy for you is something that some people wouldn't be caught dead doing.
Yep.
For just the reasons we're talking about today. So last thing, and you've given us a ton of knowledge today, a ton of wisdom. Leave us with some concise words of wisdom that the audience can remember, take away, put on a Post-it note, tattoo on their arm, put on their wall, whatever they'd like to do.
I'm going to leave you with the same 3 things I say to my kids every day. Be happy, make good choices, and I love you. And if you put that on a Post-it note and stick it on your mirror, and you see those words every day, they will make you have a good start. Just remember those words. Words to live by.
Be happy.
Make good choices. Yep. And I love you. Yep.
Amazing, Krista. Well, it was an absolute delight having you on today. I'm sure the audience is going to love to hear all about you. And I just want to thank you again for being on today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with me, Jason Frizzell. Enjoyed today's episode? Please tell your friends, give us a shout out and a follow on Facebook and Instagram, and take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes. If something from this episode has piqued your interest and you'd like to connect about it, please email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners.